I walked into St. Mary's Catholic Hospital in Beirut, Lebanon, for a routine heart procedure, and 7 minutes later, I was clinically dead on the operating table with no pulse, no breath, and no brain activity, while doctors scrambled to bring me back. But during those 7 minutes, my soul left my body, and I stood face to face with Jesus Christ himself. And what he told me to warn every single person about was so urgent, so terrifying, and so specific that the moment I came back to life, I grabbed the surgeon's arm and repeated his exact words before I even knew my own name. Have you ever been so confident in the way you live your daily life that you never once imagined the God of the universe might stop your heart just to tell you that one thing you do every single day is destroying your soul and the souls of everyone around you? My name is Rania Hakim Al-Khouri. I am 30 years old, and on September 12, 2023, I was pronounced clinically dead for 7 minutes at St. Mary's Catholic Hospital in the Ashrafia district of Beirut, after my heart stopped during a cardiac catheterization procedure. I had no idea that in those 7 minutes of death, Jesus would give me a message so explosive that it would cost me my marriage, my family, and my entire community, but save more lives than I can count. I need you to understand who I was before I died, because the woman who walked into that hospital is not the woman who walked out. I grew up in the Tariq El Jadideh neighborhood of Beirut, in a 4th-floor apartment where the evening call to prayer from the Khalid ibn al-Walid Mosque shook the glass of water on my bedside table every single day at sunset. My father, Hakim Al-Khouri, was a well-known Islamic studies teacher who lectured at a private academy near the Corniche and was consulted by families across the district on matters of faith and religious law. He could recite any chapter of the Quran from memory with his eyes closed, and men twice his age bowed their heads when he spoke. My mother, Wafa, wore the hijab from girlhood and organized a women's Quran circle in our living room every Thursday. The smell of her kibbeh frying in the kitchen, mixed with the sound of women reciting scripture together, is a memory so deep in my bones it feels like it was there before I was born. Religion was not an activity in our home. It was gravity. It held everything in place. While other girls in my neighborhood braided each other's hair on the balcony or gossiped about boys after school, I sat beside my father in the study room, memorizing the Quran, chapter by chapter. By 14, I had committed over 22 chapters to memory. I never missed a single prayer, not even the month I had walking pneumonia at age 11, and my mother found me on the bathroom floor at dawn trying to do wudu with shaking hands because I could not bear the thought of missing Fajr. The elders at the mosque told my father, "Allah has given you a daughter with the discipline of a scholar." I fasted every Ramadan without a word of complaint and added voluntary fasts because I believed that the hungrier my body was, the fuller my soul would become. Every word of praise felt like proof that I was on the straight path. But there was another education happening alongside the prayers. My father taught me that Christians were not merely different, they were deceived by the worst deception in history. They committed shirk by worshiping a man as God, and this was the one sin Allah would never forgive. In our neighborhood, the Christian families on the other side of the old demarcation line were spoken about in whispers and warnings. I was told never to enter a church, never to accept food from Christian neighbors during their holidays, never to let their theology touch my ears. By 16, I had joined a Muslim student group at school that organized discussions about the errors in Christian theology and distributed pamphlets outside Christian bookshops in Hamra. I debated Christian classmates with a confidence that felt like armor. I had no idea that the God those Christians worshipped was already looking at me, already counting down the days until he would stop my heart and stand in front of me and say the words that would tear my entire world apart. By 29, I had everything a devout Muslim woman was supposed to have. I graduated with a degree in pharmacy from the Lebanese University. I married a deeply religious man named Bilal, who led prayers at our local mosque and ran a halal import business. We had a clean apartment, a growing savings account, and the full respect of our community. I had the career, the husband, the faith, the reputation. I had everything. Ask yourself this question. Have you ever been so certain your life was complete that you never noticed the one thing that was missing? In August of 2023, I started having episodes of dizziness and chest pain that my doctor could not explain with basic tests. He referred me to a cardiologist at St. Mary's Catholic Hospital in Ashrafia, one of the best cardiac units in Lebanon. I resisted at first. The idea of being treated in a Catholic hospital made me uneasy, but Bilal said medicine was medicine, and the doctors there were the most qualified. The cardiologist found a minor blockage and scheduled a cardiac catheterization for September 12th. A simple procedure, he said, 30 minutes, minimal risk. I kissed Bilal goodbye in the waiting room and told him I would see him in an hour. I had no idea that I would not see him or anything else in this world for the next 7 minutes, because I was about to stand before the throne of a God I had spent my entire life denying. They wheeled me into the procedure room at 10:15 in the morning. I remember the fluorescent lights above me. I remember the nurse placing sensors on my chest. I remember the cardiologist saying something to his assistant in French. I remember feeling a cold pressure in my wrist where the catheter entered. And then, every machine in the room screamed at once. My heart stopped. A rare reaction to the contrast dye triggered a full cardiac arrest. The team initiated emergency resuscitation. For 7 minutes and 12 seconds, I had no heartbeat, no spontaneous respiration, and no measurable brain activity. I was clinically dead, but I was not gone. I had no idea that dying would be the moment I finally became fully, completely, terrifyingly awake. That is when it happened. The moment that destroyed everything I believed and rebuilt me from nothing. I was standing in a space that had no edges, no walls, no floor, no sky. But I was not floating. I was held. The air was not air. It was warmth that had weight, like being wrapped in something alive that knew my name. Light surrounded me, but did not come from any direction. It came from within everything, including me. I looked down at my hands and they were translucent, glowing faintly from the inside. And then I felt a presence so enormous that every cell of my being wanted to simultaneously run and fall and worship. I turned around. Jesus was there. He was not a painting. He was not a distant figure in white robes on a cloud. He was close. Close enough that I could see the texture of his skin and the depth of his eyes. Those eyes held 1,000 lifetimes of sorrow and joy, compressed into a single gaze that looked at me and knew everything. Every prayer I had whispered, every lie I had believed, every person I had judged, every night I had cried alone and told no one. He did not speak at first. He simply looked at me. And in that look I felt something I had never experienced in 30 years of devout religious practice. I felt completely, fully, unconditionally known and loved at the same time. Not earned love, not rewarded love. Love that existed before I did anything to deserve it. Love that would have existed even if I had done everything wrong. It hit me so hard my knees buckled and I collapsed in that space of light and wept. Then he spoke. His voice did not travel through air. It entered me from every direction at once, like a sound that starts inside your chest and expands outward. He said, "Rania, I have always known you. Now I need you to go back and tell them something." I could not speak. I could only listen. He said, "Tell them to stop judging my children. Tell them immediately. Tell them now." And then he showed me what he meant. The space around us transformed. I was no longer standing in light. I was standing in a living vision that unfolded in every direction. I saw churches, I saw mosques, I saw living rooms and dinner tables, and office break rooms and school hallways, and social media feeds scrolling on phones held by hands in the dark. And in every scene I saw the same thing, people pronouncing judgment on other people in the name of God. I saw a pastor standing behind a pulpit, telling his congregation that divorced women were damaged goods who could never fully serve the Lord. I saw a Muslim father disowning his daughter because she removed her hijab. I saw Christian women in a prayer group whispering about a young mother who had a child outside of marriage and deciding she was not welcome at their Bible study. I saw a teenager reading comments under a testimony video that said, "God will never forgive someone like you." I saw religious men of every faith using scripture like a gavel, sentencing people to spiritual death for sins they themselves committed in private every single week. And around every act of judgment, I saw something that made my entire body go cold. I saw walls, invisible walls being built brick by brick between the judge and God. Every time a person looked at another human being and decided they were beyond grace, a wall went up. Not around the person being judged, around the judge. Jesus said, "Every time they condemn one of my children, they lock the door of their own heart. They think they are protecting holiness. They are building their own prisons. And millions are doing this every single day and calling it faith." I had no idea that the sin I never considered a sin was the one Jesus himself crossed death to warn me about. I saw more. He showed me the people who had been driven away from God by judgment. A young man who walked into a church for the first time, seeking help with addiction, and left after an elder told him God could not use someone so broken. A Muslim woman who wanted to explore Christianity, but was told by online commenters that her people were all terrorists and she should go back where she came from. A teenage girl who confessed her struggles to a youth leader and was told her doubts were proof she was never really saved. I watched each of these people walk away from God with wounded eyes, and I watched the wall around the person who judged them grow one brick taller. Jesus looked at me and said, "I did not die so they could decide who deserves to live. I died so everyone could live. Tell them to stop. Tell them I said stop." Tears streamed down my face faster than I could wipe them. I was crying harder than I had ever cried in my life. Then he showed me the hardest thing. He showed me myself. He showed me every time I had looked at a Christian with contempt, every pamphlet I had handed out calling their faith a corruption, every time I had whispered to a friend that a woman at the market was not modest enough, every time I had silently decided someone was beneath me because their religion or their choices did not match my standard. The walls around my own heart were enormous, and I had been building them for 20 years, calling it devotion. Ask yourself this question. If Jesus himself showed you every judgment you have ever made, would the walls around your own heart reach the ceiling? Then I heard the beeping. Faint at first, then loud. The warmth began to fade. The light dimmed. I felt weight return to my body like being poured back into a container made of lead. My eyes opened to fluorescent lights and the faces of doctors leaning over me. One nurse was crying. The cardiologist kept saying, "She is back, she is back." I did not know where I was. I did not know my own name for several seconds, but I knew the message. Before I could think, I grabbed the surgeon's arm with a grip so tight he flinched, and I said, "He told me to tell them to stop judging. Jesus told me to tell them to stop." The surgeon stared at me. The nurse covered her mouth. Nobody in that room spoke for a long time. The weeks that followed broke my life into pieces. I could not keep what I had seen to myself. I told Bilal first. He listened in silence, then said I had experienced a hallucination caused by oxygen deprivation, and that I should never repeat what I told him to anyone. When I refused to stay silent, when I began telling friends and family that I had met Jesus and that he had given me a message, the walls came crashing down. My father called me. His voice was ice. "You are no longer my daughter. You are dead to this family. You have shamed every person who carries our name." My mother wept so hard my aunt called and begged me to recant. She sent one message, "How could you break me like this, Rania?" Then she blocked me. Bilal gave me an ultimatum: deny what I experienced or the marriage was over. I could not deny it. He filed for divorce the next week. My pharmacy let me go after colleagues complained they could not work with an apostate. Friends held funeral prayers for me. Death threats arrived. I had to leave Beirut for weeks, but I gained everything that truly matters. I gained Jesus Christ, a forgiveness I never earned, a peace that no human logic can manufacture, a community of believers who took me in and loved me when I had nothing. And the message Jesus gave me became the purpose for every breath I have taken since that operating table. 6 months later, I met a woman named Grace at a Christian women's gathering in Junia. She was a Lebanese Maronite who had spent years building walls of her own, judging people inside and outside her church, and said that hearing my testimony broke something open in her that she had been defending for decades. Grace introduced me to her brother, a quiet carpenter named Elias, who read his Bible every morning before dawn and never once asked me to prove that what I experienced was real. He simply said, "I believe you because I can see it in your eyes." We married in a small chapel overlooking the Mediterranean in April 2024. 3 friends from my new church family stood beside me. Today I share the message Jesus gave me with anyone who will listen. I have spoken in churches, living rooms, and online gatherings across Lebanon, Jordan, and Europe. Over 50 Muslims have given their lives to Christ after hearing my story. But the message reaches further than conversion. Hundreds of Christians have contacted me to say they finally understood why their faith felt hollow. They had been so busy judging others that they had locked themselves inside walls they did not know they were building. I had no idea that dying for 7 minutes would be the thing that finally taught me how to live. I still send letters to my parents twice a year. No response. I still pray for Bilal every night. I still drive past that mosque in Tariq el-Jadida and remember the girl who memorized the Quran and thought she had earned God's love through discipline alone. She did not know that love was never something to be earned. Look inside your own heart right now. Who have you judged this week? Whose door have you closed in the name of God? The Muslim woman who handed out pamphlets against Christians no longer exists. In her place stands a follower of Jesus Christ who would rather die again than deny the God who stopped her heart to save her soul. If he can transform someone like me, someone who spent decades building walls between people and God, then he can absolutely transform you, no matter what you have done or where you come from. The same Jesus who met me in death and sent me back with a warning is standing before you right now through this very testimony. He is not asking you to be perfect. He is asking you to put down the gavel. Jesus is calling you right now. He is saying what he said to me. Stop judging. Start loving. The door you locked on someone else is the door I am trying to open for you. Will you let him in, tear down the walls you have built, and finally become the person he died for you to be?